It's a Blairing Out with Eric Blair show. We're here at the 2019 NAMM show with iconic freelance bassist Tanya O'Callahan. And we're here after the NAMM show. This is Sunday night.
On the way out, we survived NAMM 2019.
What was your first NAMM show?
My first NAMM show was 5 years ago, before I actually even moved here.
Really?
Yeah. So I came out, when I first came out to LA, I came to the ASCAP and the NAMM show to kind of try and meet people out here, and then I moved here the following year.
Now, Tanya, everybody knows that you're a session bass player and you've played with a lot of the biggies. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your entree into the music business as a session bassist.
Well, I started in Ireland, obviously. That's where I'm from, if you can't hear the accent. And I did a lot of TV work back in Europe, and I did all that sort of style first, and then I ended up coming out. Before I moved to LA, I did a session for Maynard Keenan, and I played on some of the PUSCIFER stuff, the early stuff, so that took me to Arizona, and that was in 2008 or 2009. I always forget the years, it's all a blurb. And when I came and I did that, and I kind of got my foot in the industry like that, and then I came to LA. I started coming to LA about 5 years ago, and then it was just kind of a ripple effect of, you know, playing a lot of jam nights, doing a session, ended up playing with Dee Snider and then Steven, and all these things just sort of spiraled.
Let's talk about Maynard. How did you get in touch with him?
I met them in Glasgow, actually, at a show, at a Tool show, and some of my friends were a crew on the gig, and I had been touring in the UK as well, so I met them after one of the shows, and we just got talking about different projects and whatnot, and he invited me, like, on the spot if I wanted to come and play bass on a couple of tracks.
He tell you what he specifically liked about you as a bass player, because he can pretty much pick and choose whoever he wants to get.
Well, it was more like PUSCIFER really was a guest thing, so it was, you know, as he would describe himself, a rotating door of guests. So there's been many guests on the PUSCIFER records, and that was his whole thing. He wanted to invite a lot of new and like past friends in. So it was kind of like, you know, I met a musician who was, you know, obviously very passionate about music when I was talking about, you know, writing and all the styles that I liked. So he took a chance on me, which was wonderful, and that really, like, that was it, like, and he just, you know, ended up going out to Arizona a couple of months after that, and totally blind. We didn't have anything written, and we just wrote on the spot. What
was his approach to songwriting, and how did you fit into that?
Well, it was really interesting. So myself and Joshua Eustace, who was the producer on that record, who's in Telephone Tel Aviv, he was amazing, like multi-instrumentalist. He and myself we did it all in his shed, in his house, a little home studio, and we just went into the studio, myself and Josh, for the first day or two, and kind of wrote some concept ideas, some rough loops, and then Maynard would come in and improv vocals, and then he'd go back out and do his vineyard thing, and then we'd, you know, rearrange something that he liked, and then he'd come back and do a vocal. So it was all very natural and just organic. It was really wonderful, actually.
Spiritually, where did you see him at?
He's a really intelligent human, which is just so endearing. Like, so it was just fabulous to be around him and the people that he surrounds himself by, and the way that, like, hearing him sing on front of you for the first time is really astounding, because I grew up a massive Tool fan and Perfect Circle, obviously. So it was just great energy, great people all around that session, and I had a blast. And I just, you know, the way that they treated us was so welcoming, because I was a total newbie they're taking a chance on, and it was wonderful. I think everybody really vibrated on the same level at that camp, so it was wonderful.
Were there any live drums in the studio, or only loops?
The drums were done after we had loops, because afterwards it was like, God, there's so many guests on that record. I believe Josh Freese is on it, and Jeff Friedel, and Tim Alexander and Josh are on the tracks that I did. So there's so many guests. It was amazing, but everything was done in layers and added as he went, because he was always inviting, and Mila Jokovic did vocals on some of the stuff. It was really cool.
So were you in there for the collaborations, or just did you lay down your bass tracks on the loops?
Me, Maynard, and Josh did all the first parts. So, and then afterwards, it was months later, they did drums and everything. Yeah.
So you were involved in the songwriting process.
Oh yeah.
What? Tell me about lyrically. Did you help come up with any of the lyrics or any of the concepts lyrically?
No. Lyrics are all Maynard. Lyrics and melody were all Maynard. So Polar Bear was a co-write between us, and that was just like a groove that turned into a song. And Toma was, you know, he came in and just started singing Toma over the loop we had. It was super fun. So he does all of that, and he's super creative. Like, he'll have an idea for a guitar line, he will sing it, to the guitarist and then have it played. So he hears all the layers in his head a lot, which is cool.
What kind of tone did he want you to use for your bass parts on that album?
He didn't have any specific requirements. We went down to a local music store and he was like, let's just get all these pedals. And I ended up using the Bassmaster a lot and a Rat, because they're very different songs. The two songs that I ended up being on the EP that I'm on, one is very mellow and one is very gnarly. So I just had fun with sounds. And it was so many years ago, I wasn't really into gear at that level. So it was fun for me because I was just experimenting. I had a sea of pedals and it was just total grunge on one and really, really mellow harmonics vibes on the other.
Open.
Very open, yeah. He wanted it to be organic.
Have you ever played with Josh Freese live?
I have not. I would love to, hopefully someday.
Who are your two favorite drummers right now?
Oh my God, that's an impossible question. Because like some of them are my best friends. That's a hard one for me because just stylistically wise, like I mean I've always loved Danny, and I also love like a lot of, there's too many with the genres, that's the problem. A lot of local players like Jason Sutter and Mark Schulman, all these cats that I've had the honour to play with, so I would have to pick 2 or 3 from each style of music, so we could be here all day.
How do you feel you're treated in the music industry? Do you feel you're treated as an equal?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think about it. I don't think about male and female musicians. I mean, it still exists that people are prejudging you or expecting you not to be so good until they see you play. But I never let that stuff bother me or that, and I just go about my business being a professional musician. And for the most part, I'm just one of the dudes, and all the dudes know that. So.
What was your next big gig after Maynard?
When I first moved, I wasn't living here because I was in Arizona. That wasn't in LA. When I first came out to LA, I did a lot of just session stuff. So I was doing little bits of studio things for various bands. And then my first big touring gig since I officially moved would have been Jordan Fisher, who's a pop artist. So he's with the Disney label. He's kind of like a young Bruno Mars. Amazing, amazing singer and performer. Did that, and then right after that, I started with Dee Snider. And then at some point in the mush of all that, I started playing with Steven Adler.
How did Dee Snider run his ship, and did you record with him?
Oh yes, but amazing. That camp was so fun. He knows exactly what sounds he wants. He knows exactly how loud he wants it. He's amazing to work with. He really is a treat to work with. Great human and incredible performer. Unbelievably fit. Voice is still in top-notch shape. So we had a lot of fun, and he keep you on your toes because he's a big performer. So, and yeah, I was on the new record on 2 songs. I recorded 2 of them.
Again, what tone? Do you ever use distortion?
Yeah, for D I did. I totally did. But I use MXR pedals, and I use the overdrive, and I use the little. I don't use a lot of effects because I like the straight tone I get from my Sadowski bass. Amazing, the NYC, beautiful basses that are very plug and play. So the EQ is, there's so much you can just do with the sound of the bass already. But I'm a very plug and play type player, unless the band, because I play with so many different bands and so many different styles. I'll wait to see what the music requires before I don't go in like this is my sound, because I have to adapt to different bands, so I don't have a set sound, but I like the pure sound of my GK and my Sadowski just straight out.
Yeah, I blew the speakers out of a Gallion Kruger amp one time.
This nickname comes from blowing amps up.
Really?
Yeah, Dee Snider christened me TKO because I think I blew up something like 8 amps on tour in Europe. It was a combination of badly maintained backline and a very powerful bass. And I play hard, and people kind of weren't expecting it, and I blew a lot of heads up, and that's where I gained the name TKO.
You had the Steven Adler gig. This is pretty recent.
Yeah.
He's got a great band, and I've heard his new singer is like amazing. So tell me how you had entree into his band.
Yeah, well, I've known Steven for a couple of years, just again from the LA jam scene. We played together at a couple of charity events. Yeah. And we sort of just knew each other, and then they'd asked me to do a few shows, and we ended up doing a festival in LA together. And then Sean McNabb, who's an amazing bass player, who was with Steven, he was getting busy with Lynch Mob, and he was doing his other stuff. So they were like, "Hey, do you want to jump in on these shows?" And that was kind of it. And it's been really fun playing with Steven, because I didn't grow up listening to Guns N' Roses. Really? So no, I didn't grow up listening to any of the stuff that I ended up playing out here, because it's a very different playlist in Ireland and top 40. So it was really interesting. I really have to shed all the stuff. Same with Dee. I didn't know Twisted Sister, which is always fun when you don't know your boss.
When you are playing with a band and you don't know the songs, how long does it take for you to get to the point where I really am enjoying this song?
Well, of course it depends on the music. Like some is more complicated than others. And even with Adler, I didn't think there would be as much shedding involved until I sat down and went, oh my God, Duff is an incredible bass player. It's like a jazz guitar player on bass. So I really had to shed that set for like, you know, a week or two out or whatever, however long, and then it takes a few gigs, so you know, you already know the parts, but then to feel really, really comfortable with it. So it just depends on the how complicated the music is, how long you have. Like sometimes I get called like 2 days before to learn a lot of songs. So yeah, but I do it all the time. I'm used to it.
So from what I understand, Duff used a Fender Jazz Special to record that record.
Probably.
And I like the tone on that record.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the sound. Now when I go back through all this music, and even when I was listening to the Twisted Sister songs, it's fun for me because I'm a session player. I get to adapt and have fun. So what I do is usually learn it exactly as is. So I learn it as true to the original player. And then when you go in and you kind of read the situation, and like I started playing it with pick because that's what Duff did, but it didn't feel right for me because I'm more of a fingerstyle player. So I was playing it with Stephen fingerstyle, and he was like, I love this. Whatever that is, we locked in.
Yeah, he seems pretty easy to please. But how did you keep the tone? Because Duff's tone is a very bright, very ballsy, in your face.
It's a combination. It doesn't. I still keep like some of the mid and top end for that like wrangly sound, and it's, you know, it's blending between the guitars as well. But I like a more warm tone, so I find a middle ground with it. Now, if the artist specifically asks, like you have to have the exact tone, I'll do my research and do exactly what Duff or whoever it is. But for most of the time, like, because mine, I don't have like an aggressive sound, so it's easily like I can balance either way if they want more top. I keep a lot of lows and mids in my sound. I like a really warm but slightly bright sound.
Do you want to become independent of the session world and actually have your own band that you could just put out records or whatever?
I would like both, actually. I'm finally working on my own music this year, but I would really like to, because I've, you know, been bouncing around so many bands. I'd love to join the Foo Fighters or someone of that level and be back in stadium. But I really love so many different styles of music that I just would like to see in the next few years to get that consistent tour back in, because I love playing with everybody that I play with. But you know, I have been jumping around a lot of bands, so it'd be really cool to get like that big American band gig now.
Have you hung out or played with Dave?
Well, I was hanging out with him the other night because we played Dime Bash, and it's his party. So I've actually played a studio session with Taylor Hawkins, but I was in Dublin and he was in LA, and we did it on Skype. So I kind of played with the Foo Fighters, almost. But yeah, I mean, that kind of level of band that it's, you know, it's still rock music, but it's just great songs, riffs. But I also play a lot of different styles, and because I end up in a lot of rock bands, people think I'm just like a rock chick, but I do actually play I love groove stuff, and I love pop, and I love it all. So we'll see, you know, I just kind of go on with the flow, what the universe is putting out in front of me, and I've been having, you know, a really wonderful time playing with some incredible people since I moved here. So just got to keep up the grind and see what happens.
The Blairing Out Show.